All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, I'll be doing a preview and prediction for a Week 5 contest between number 1 Ohio State and the Washington Huskies. 9.5-point favorites or the road team. 52.5 is the total. 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS from Seattle. Anything started with the Ohio State offense on this Huskies defense. For Ohio State, breaking in a new quarterback with a talented supporting cast. And Julian Sands played really well this year. Week 1 against Texas, they really shut down the playbook. They weren't looking to do a whole lot. Didn't want to put the ball in harm's way. Just wanted to stay out of the sticks. Didn't really put him in too many opportunities to not succeed. And that was allowing them to win that game. 14-7 back in Week 1. Grambling State, he had only one incomplete pass, and it was for an interception. That was in the red zone near the goal line. He tried to hit a long throw to the boundary in the end zone late, and ended up being picked off. That was his only blemish in that game. And then he had 2 picks against Ohio, but he still completed 78% for 347. So this is a guy that they're still trying to break in, right? I don't think he's fully built. Chemistry of his pass catchers, and this is going to be his first career road start. He's a very talented guy, good fit for the scheme because he does have a big arm. He knows where he wants to go with the ball. He has nice IQ. And, of course, when you have guys like Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate leading the way, things are going to be significantly easier. Jeremiah Smith off to a great start, 300-plus yards on 20 receptions. He's coming off a major game against Ohio where he had a $153. He's got 3 touchdowns on the year. Carnell Tate has 219 and 3 scores as well, including a big one he had against Texas. Other than that, it's been really quiet from this group. You have a handful of tight ends led by Max Clare. They've got 4 receptions each. Brandon Ennis is going to be your number 3 receiver, and then potentially Mylan Graham and Rayson Rogers as well. But for the most part, it's not too many different guys getting targets, and that's fine. You got 2 first-rounders right there heading the charge for the Buckeyes passing attack. And I certainly think that Sand is going to continue to grow at a very fast pace. They still, I don't think, have opened up this playbook fully, and it requires significant arm strength, and he does have that. A lot of spacing on these routes. They brutalize teams in man coverage, of course, in zone. They're tough to contain as well. But for saying this is his first road start. Husky Stadium's not easy. Mid-afternoon game. You look at a Washington secondary that does have really good corners. If Hassan Prysock, he's great. Takario Davis should be back for this game. He had a bit of an injury he suffered in Week 2 against UC Davis, so he sat out, and he'll be back for this one. These guys are both really good in coverage. I think they can do well in this matchup. As hard as it's going to be, this is going to be one of the tougher duos that this Ohio State passing attack has seen in terms of corners. As they will see that is in 2025. The secondary wasn't all that bad against Washington State. It was really, the linebackers getting pieced up, and then Leroy Bryant, he was just abysmal. He gave up a giant chunk. Pretty much half the yards was given up to him. He's the number 3 cornerback, so if he's on the field in this one, they're certainly going to throw it his way. Don't want to see him in man coverage too many times on Smith, especially. They did allow 277, though, in that one. They still, against Washington State, that is this past weekend, they did snag 2 interceptions. They now have 4 on the year, so the secondary's been making plays. And those 2 corners aren't even the best ones on this unit so far. In terms of defensive backs, Alex McLaughlin has been playing out of his mind at his safety position. Really good in coverage, a respectable run defender as well. Mikael Easteen, a veteran of the program. He's a little bit more inconsistent. He's going to have to be big in this game, though, when it comes to slowing down this workhorse group. And then Rayshawn Clark out of the slot. He's been pretty poor as well in coverage, but he does have nice attributes when it comes to tackling and playing against the run. For Ohio State, this is a team whose rushing attack, I think the jury is still out on them because it's a group that's got 3 different guys getting touches. C.J. Donaldson and James Peoples, really the main ones. I think Bo Jackson, the freshman, is eventually going to work his way into a starting a sizable role when they enter conference play. Back-to-back games of 100-plus yards for him. C.J. Donaldson's the power back. Peoples, he's going to be the change of pace, more shifty guy. And Donaldson, of course, is great in short yardage, and he's going to be the guy they use at the goal line a whole lot for this run game. Coming off 2 great contests against Grambling and Ohio. They were abysmal against Texas. They did have 77 yards, but they did a good job of staying ahead of the sticks. They were also able to punch one in. I think that was 4th and goal against Texas when they scored that TD as well. So this is going to be really the first big test when it comes to in-conference play, and I'm really not sure how well they will do because I don't think this offensive line for Ohio State is really all that polished. It was a big problem for them last year. I mean, they got their things together in the playoffs, and they played very well. Of course, they battled a ton of injuries, but I think Carson Hinsman at center, Tegra Tejbola at right guard, these guys are liabilities, and I think at left guard, Luke Montgomery, they finally found a spot for him. Is that good or is that bad? I'm really not sure. Left tackle, Austin Streiferlid, he's been good to start the year. That's not a spot that I thought had him pegged at in the preseason, though. And then Phillip Daniels at right tackle, still, trying to find his footing when it comes to this type of competition. So I think this offensive line is certainly iffy. I don't know. I don't think Washington exactly has the bodies to potentially overwhelm them. Zach Durfee is going to be your best edge rusher. He's off to a phenomenal start this year. Jacob Lane is really good. Isaiah Ward's been productive. He's really struggled as a tackler, though, at his defensive end spot. But I think Ward and Durfee are going to be your top pass rushers. Bryce Butler on the interior. Samonte Peppa on the interior. They've been getting a lot of different guys involved. Peppa, though, 6'3", 350 pounds. You're going to look to bring some size and slow down this rushing attack or get some inside penetration in drop back passing. So I don't think that Washington exactly has the bodies to maybe expose them, but I don't think they're exactly going to have the worst effort either. I think that guys like Ward and Lane and Durfee can have a respectable performance in this one. At the linebacking group for Washington, though, Devin Bryant really struggled in coverage this past week. Tariq Al-Yukta, he's a veteran. He played at Washington State in 2024 as a starter and was very productive. He's off to a respectable start this year as well. But if the defensive line is not able to really do the heavy lifting for this front six, I think that the linebacking group is probably going to be in for a tougher afternoon. And again, I think the secondary is a big strength for Washington, and I think they're gonna do pretty respectable in this game. They do have tough matchups though, but I think that this duo of Prysock and Davis, who've played a lot of football together, not just here at Washington, but Arizona as well, I think they can certainly be a battle-tested group and have some success at times. Now I move to the other side of things, the Washington offense against that Buckeye defense. All preseason long, I was singing the praises of DeMond Williams. I think this guy is the future of college football, and he's off to a phenomenal start this year with his dual-threat playmaking abilities, 998 yards of offense through 3 games, 8 total touchdowns as well. He completely smoked Washington State. 84% comp rate, 300 yards and 4 scores through the air, and he also ran for a season-high 88 and another score. This guy's ridiculous. His speed as a runner, his elusiveness is very impressive. He's very twitchy. His arm is incredibly strong. I mean, he can really throttle into a tight window 40 yards downfield incredibly fast. He'll really zip it past your ear. Now, this receiving group, they have an elite player in Denzel Boston, who leads the team in every single category by a wide margin. Other than that, though, many guys have not been stepping up. Desmond Roebuck is third on the team in receiving yards. Amari Evans, he's a big play receiver. We'll see if he can get more involved now that he appears to fully be back from injury after a 59-yard touchdown against the Wazoo. Rasheed Williams, Justice Williams, a couple other guys on roster who've gotten some targets. But it's really going to be the Denzel Boston show. Running back Jonah Coleman, second on the team in receiving yards. He's been phenomenal on the ground this year, 347, 9 touchdowns, which does lead FBS. He was efficient against Wazoo, almost 5 yards per carry. That didn't really give him too many touches. And then against UC Davis, he had 5 scores in that one. So he was able to run up his numbers a little bit against weaker opponents. But he's been really good in his career at generating good production, even against some tougher opponents. I know there's a couple games last year against elite D-lines like Penn State and Oregon where he was unable to do anything. But now they have a quarterback who can really mix things up with his dual-threat approach. I think we're going to see a lot of read option in this game. You want to get him involved as much as possible. DeMond Williams, I think, on QB powers as well. Maybe something they can utilize if they can get to the red zone. I think Williams is phenomenal, though. In this rushing attack is really going to lean on his legs a whole bunch. So I think maybe 15 carries is in store for him. The offensive line, this is going to be their first big test. Washington hasn't played anybody really of note. But Carver Willis, Kansas State transfer, he's been great to start this season. Drew Sparty at right tackle, also looking quite sharp. I think on the interior, certainly questionable. John Mills at left guard, Landon Hatchett at center. And then right guard, you have Gary and Hatchett, his brother as well, is a little bit more inconsistent in pass protection. This will be a tough matchup for them. Ohio State, of course, breaking in this new defensive line. So far, they've looked good. We saw what they did against Texas. They weren't the greatest when it came to getting in the backfield and slowing down that run game. Texas had a good amount of success in that contest. But, of course, the Buckeyes stepped it up inside the 5-yard line like they always do, and they're able to come away with a great stop. Caden Curry, Kanata Jackson, your top edges. I think Bayou Atkinson's a lethal player off the edge as well. Caden McDonald is an elite run defender. Edric Houston, he hasn't played that well. He's been inconsistent, especially when it comes to tackling, but he's still a big body at X5 star. He's going to continue to grow. This defensive line, though, I think they have lots of heat coming off the edge. And the interior, of course, has a lot of big bodies and a lot of athleticism. At linebacker, Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, an elite duo. It's probably the top one in college football. Sonny Styles is really becoming an alpha for this defense after some troubles in his first 2 seasons. Now his second year as a full-time starting linebacker is really understanding the position. He's been very good in coverage so far. Arvell Reese, of course, at times last year was very impressive, so they were excited to get him into the lineup. He's a very efficient tackler. He's great against the run, so this will be fun to see how these guys can do when it comes to containing an explosive quarterback. And then the secondary, I think, for Ohio State still remains the toughest the toughest group. positional-wise for the Buckeyes defense. Davis Enigmason, this guy's a willing run defender. He's inconsistent in coverage, but I think overall this is a guy that makes lots of plays on the ball. He had problems with flags last year. Looks like he's cleaned a good bit of that up to start the season, but that was a big problem, especially against tougher receivers last year. Jermaine Matthews, also really sounding coverage. And then at safety, Caleb Downs, of course, the field general over there. His communication, his IQ is incredible. He's just elite in coverage across the board. And then Jalen McLean, I think, is off to a pretty solid start. That safety position was up for grabs. They needed a new starter, and so far this year, he's been great. Very efficient with no missed tackles. Biggest problems, I think, in the slot. I don't know if Washington will have a receiver, maybe Evans, they can throw in the slot, and he can really expose him with his speed. But Lorenzo Styles in the slot, the ex-Notre Dame receiver, I just don't think he's any good. I mean, they put him in this position, transitioning from offense, and he's been poor to start the year. Last year, he really wasn't that good in that position. Jermaine Matthews, at times, has had to play some slot. And that means Devin Sanchez, the 5-star true freshman's had to get on the field, and he's been, less than desirable. So there's matchups I think Washington can take advantage of when it comes to drawing up its passing attack against this secondary. Styles struggles, they're absolutely going to move Matthews down, and again, it puts a true freshman in his first road appearance too, in the Big Ten outside at corner. And I think Denzel Boston, these are winnable matchups for him, even though these corners are good. These guys are just incredibly well coached. Matt Patricia, they understand the scheme, even if it was a new one that just got implemented a couple months ago. They're clicking. Against Texas, they played very well. But as we've come to see, the Texas offense is not as good as we thought it would be. I expected them to struggle in the month of September, so it's not a shock to me. But they don't really put that stress on you like a lot of people were anticipating. So maybe the secondary will have some issues here against a more coordinated passing attack. Leading to the final analysis and the prediction. Yeah, a shocker here. I'm taking the Washington Huskies to beat the number one team in the country. I think Ohio State coming on the road for the first time this year. Julian Sand is a phenomenal quarterback. He's had some inconsistencies, though, and I think when it comes to being a little turnover prone, potentially, that could be a problem against an opportunistic secondary that's not just going to be a cakewalk for these receivers. I think, obviously, they're going to have the upper hand against anybody they play, and they're going to do their damage, and they're going to put up their numbers, but this is a group that I think can be battle-tested, and they can stand strong if they keep their confidence. And I think the most important part is DeMond Williams. This guy is the future of college football. I've been saying it for a long time. It's, almost time for the rest of the world to find that out as well. And he's going to put on a clinic here, even against one of the nation's most elite defenses. The three-headed monster of him, Coleman, and Boston is great. You're going to need more guys to step up as well. But his dual threat ability, his skills when it comes to making plays out of the pocket as a runner and as a passer, it's really going to, it makes things hard. Even on an elite defense, they have to contain him, and it's going to be tough, I think. This is a guy who could certainly also, force turnovers, maybe look to force things downfield, and it's not there. But I think that matchup with Styles, I think he's going to struggle. I think it's going to force them to do some things in the secondary that Denzel Boston will be able to take advantage of. As long as this offensive line doesn't get completely bullied, I think they'll do well. And I think the D-line is going to do pretty solid as well when it comes to defending the Buckeyes' rushing attack, because I just don't think that they are all that polished up front on their offensive line. So I think Washington, it's going to be tough, right? The Buckeyes are certainly going to have their success, but we just have to do enough to allow our quarterback to cook. 9.5-point underdogs, that's going to be the best bet, but I think Washington wins this one outright. I'm going for all the marbles on this one. Huskies are going to knock off the Buckeyes on Saturday. That's going to be it for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.